When I first started building my personal brand on Instagram, I was one of those people. I believed that I could simply pick content ideas out of nowhere, start creating content, and think all is just going to randomly fall into place. It was only when I began creating that content, not seeing the success I thought I would have, when I suddenly started to realize, wow, I do need to have a content strategy in place. How can I expect to get from point A to point B when I have no strategy to bridge that gap between point A and point B? You need to know, as a content creator, as a brand, as a business, how you are going to get to that goal you have on social media. And with content being the main thing on social media, you need a content strategy that's going to help you do just that. So that's why today I want to share some key points that you need to be considering when you are building your content strategy for social media, because it isn't as simple as just creating content and posting it. You need to have an idea of what you need to do, what you have to do, and what you should do in order to get to the point in which you desire. So without any further ado, let's just dive straight into the first point, and that is understanding your end goal. Why are you on social media? What are you trying to achieve on social media? Because that end goal, that desire, is what drives that whole content strategy, or at least what should drive that whole content strategy. Because if you don't know your end goal, then you're constantly going to be poking in the dark, hoping that you achieve what you think you want to achieve. So as a business, you might be on social media to simply build brand awareness, and therefore your content should be created in a way that is going to build brand awareness. But brand awareness might not be your goal. Sales, new clients may be your goal. So if that's the case, you need to be creating content that is going to increase those sales. And brand awareness and reach may not matter, because as long as you are making sales and getting new clients, nothing else matters. So understanding what you actually want to achieve is crucial. And I see it all the time. I see brands and individuals, just their content strategy is all over the place. One minute they're creating a piece of content on something, the next it's the complete opposite, then it jumps back, and then it jumps into something that's completely random again. And I'm sitting there thinking, what on earth are you actually trying to achieve here from social media? And they're thinking that it will just all fall into place because they are producing content. But if you don't know, as a brand, as a business, where you want to get with social media or what you're trying to achieve, your content will never perform, because you aren't on that road to achieving what you are setting out to. Having a set strategy, knowing what content you need to create to get to that outcome, will form that content strategy. So understanding what you actually want to achieve is possibly the most important part about social media and building that content strategy. So know, as a brand, as a business, what you are on social media for. That will sculpt the rest of this content strategy that we are actually talking about. Next, we actually need to understand who our ideal audience or potential customers actually are. Because when we understand who they are, we understand what problems these people are facing. And these problems, especially if you're in a niche similar to mine, drive what content you should be creating. For example, I create content on social media marketing, and on Instagram, I do have somewhat of a focus on Instagram marketing, content creation. So therefore, I need to understand, as the creator, what problems people currently face when it comes to Instagram or content creation, because that drives the content I produce, because people want to have their problems solved. When you solve a problem, that is seen as value. When you solve problems, you build credibility, you build trust, you build that audience because people want to follow you because you will solve more of their problems. But if you don't know who that target audience actually is and what problems that target audience actually has, you will have no idea what content you actually need to create. Because if you go onto my page and look at the content I produce, the majority of that content is solving a specific problem that my potential audience member has. And when I solve that problem, as I said, I increase my own credibility. I increase that trust I build that with that audience. And those things in tandem really help when it comes to generating leads, generating sales, increasing my credibility when I'm doing outreach myself because it's growing my audience. But that came from understanding the needs and the wants of my audience, which came from knowing who my audience was in the first place. When you've actually began building your audience, it's much easier to understand the problems of that audience because you can simply ask them. So actually creating content based on the needs and wants of your audience is really, really important. You shouldn't be guessing. You shouldn't be just hoping that the content you are creating does solve a problem. Get down to the details with these people. Genuinely ask them, what do you struggle with when it comes to XYZ? What problems are you currently facing in your business? And when you understand and get direct responses from your audience, take those and turn them into a piece of content. Because if one person has that problem, it's likely other people will have that problem as well. So by knowing it from one person, you're being able to solve the problems of the rest. Now, if you go through a problem, if you go through an experience and you solve it and find a solution, share that, because if you've gone through a problem, it's very, very likely again that somebody else has been through that problem. So sharing your experience can be turned into a piece of content. But you can see here, by understanding your audience and knowing the problems they have really drives the content you produce, and therefore that is why it's a key element of your content strategy. Next, you need to decide on a posting schedule. Consistency and frequency is very, very important when it comes to posting content on social media. I posted daily content, I believe, for around 270 days. It was daily, and then I went down, and I do take a day off every now and again, but I make sure I post at least 5 times a week, and the days I do post on, I will be posting at the same time every single day. Now, if you are starting on social media right now, I do recommend that you keep that frequency up as much as possible. I do recommend daily posting. The more you post, the more people you're going to reach. The more people you reach, the quicker you're going to grow your audience. If you're posting 1 time a week, then it's very unlikely that you're going to grow your audience at the rate you want to. Can you succeed posting 3-4 times a week? Of course you can. Nothing is impossible, and it will come down to the quality of that content you're producing. If you make sure those 3 to 4 posts are very, very, very high quality, then people are still going to want to consume them. But if you are posting more frequently, then you will, in my opinion, and from my own experience, be able to grow that audience at a quicker rate because you are reaching more people. But deciding on that posting schedule, deciding when you want to post every single day, I would stick to a specific time. Yes, experiment at first because you want to understand when the best time to post is for you and when your audience engage most, because that's going to help increase the engagement on your content, which increases the chances of you having your piece of content pushed out to that wider audience. But that comes through experimentation at first. But deciding on how many times you're going to post a week and when you are going to post is very, very important, because consistency is what really, really helps with engagement. When your audience knows you're going to be posting at a certain time every single day, or the days that you do decide to post on, they will be ready to engage with it. Some will even have post notifications turned on, but that is going to help with then coming back and engaging with your content, which, as I said, is a key indicator to the algorithm on the performance of that piece of content and whether it's keeping people on the platform. When that piece of content keeps people on the platform, the algorithm is going to want to push it to a wider audience, because the longer you keep people on the platform, the more ads they can show. The more ads they can show, the more money they make. It's really that simple. But that all comes from that frequency and consistency of your posting. So decide on how many times you want to post and when you're going to post each day. Now, there is one final thing that I do want to mention, but yes, I understand that I have kept this very, very simple. When you're creating content strategy, there are obviously many other things that you need to consider, but I don't want to make this 3 hours long, which is what it could potentially be if I went into incredible detail. I just really wanted to pick out the key points. Understanding why you are on social media is arguably the most important point. Understanding who your audience is, so that is going to be able to drive the content you create. Again, incredibly, incredibly important. Those 2 points alone should be the 2 key pillars of your content strategy. Understanding what you want to achieve, understanding what your audience wants, pinning those 2 together is going to help you reach that desired outcome. If I had to nail it down to 2 specific points, they would be the ones. But then understanding how many times you're going to post, when you're going to post, picking branding, these are all different things you can think about. But one final thing I did want to mention is experimenting and analyzing. When you create content at first, it's likely that it's gonna suck. If you look back at my original content, it was awful and it didn't perform very well. But what that was doing was giving me data. I began to understand and be able to hone in on what my audience really wanted. I understood what headlines grabbed attention, what types of posts brought in the most engagement. And when you start building up this bank of data, you're able to analyze it and understand what your audience wants and what types of content are bringing the greatest return. And when you can do that, that is really when you begin to propel that content strategy and growth on the platforms that you are using. You need to understand your analytics and understand the numbers that those analytics are showing, understanding why your pieces of content are performing. That way, you are able to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And this is a really, really important part of that content strategy. Analyzing the content that you have already produced so that you can replicate the successful posts and really help pick up speed when it comes to growing your audience and getting a higher reach with that content. But the majority of it will come down to testing. Try different things. The definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again, yet expecting to achieve different results. If something isn't working, don't expect it to fall into place and suddenly start working. It doesn't work like that when it comes to social media content. You're obviously doing something wrong. Tweak something, see if it makes a change. It might just be one word within your headline, or the imagery that you're using on your cover slides if you're creating carousels, or those first 3 seconds you're talking in the videos you are creating. Tweak them, test them, try different things until you optimize that content you are producing. Then it comes down to just repeating what works, getting rid of what doesn't, and cycling that process. And that wraps up the final point that I did want to mention when it comes to creating your social media content strategy.